I call on orders of the day number 2 to 4.
Housing Amendment Bill, third reading. Housing Corporation Social Housing Reform Amendment Bill number 2, third reading. Housing Restructuring and Tenancy Matters Social Housing Reform Amendment Bill number 2, third reading.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Surprise. I move that the bills divided from the Social Housing Reform Transaction Mandate Bill be now read a third time. I would like to thank the Social Services Committee and the many officials who worked on these bills. I also want to thank ACT, United Future and the Māori Party for supporting it. This bill, of course, achieves three things. We have heard a whole lot of rhetoric over the last few days, most of which actually is not factual for the bill itself. It authorises designated ministers to enter into social housing transactions in the name of Housing New Zealand Corporation and its subsidiaries. This will allow us to transfer homes, beginning with some in Tauranga and Invercargill, to community housing providers and undertake the redevelopment in the Tamaki community. The bill enables designated ministers to enter into contracts to require that Housing New Zealand provides transitional services to those community housing providers to ensure that tenants' needs are looked after during any transfer process, which is really important. We want to ensure that transaction processes work smoothly for the tenants foremost. The transactions process is new, both for the government and for the community housing providers. The process is proceeding in a measured way so that potential participants have the opportunity to prepare and the rights of tenants are protected. Officials have received expressions of interest about both the Invercargill and Tauranga social housing transactions, and in mid-March will announce a short list of bidders that will be asked to submit a detailed response to a request for proposals issued by the government. We're very pleased with the level of interest shown in these transactions. There are safeguards in the process. Following exercise of the transaction mandate, ministers are required to publicly notify the general nature and purpose of the use in the Gazette and present it to Parliament. This provides transparency and allows Parliament and citizens to assess whether the exercise is consistent with the purpose outlined in the legislation. The bill also clarifies that Public Works Act offer-back provisions do not apply to land held by Housing New Zealand Limited and preserves this treatment for designated ministers. It's important to provide certainty on this point to avoid delay for the social housing process. This amendment actually does not alter any existing rights. It merely confirms the current legal position. Importantly, the bill does not remove any rights of first refusal that iwi may have in relation to Housing New Zealand properties under treaty settlements. We've been engaging with affected iwi since last year to ensure such rights are appropriately recognised. The final aspect of this bill is an amendment to the Housing Act 1955 to clear up a long-standing issue not directly related to the social housing reform program. This bill is an important but small part of our overall work to improve social housing. We are also opening up Crown land in Auckland for social and affordable housing developments, providing more emergency housing with a $2.5 million funding boost to the sector, contracting with community housing providers to provide more social houses in Auckland, freeing up social houses by reviewing the tenancies of those who can afford private rentals or even purchasing their own home, and spending nearly $400 million on upgrading and maintaining Housing New Zealand homes just in the last year. This government remains committed to improving the lives of tenants in social housing, and this bill supports that objective. Mr. Speaker, I commend these bills to the House.
Members, the question is that the motion be agreed to.